All right. Before we get started, I'm sure there's going to be people saying I didn't like the show, but I did. I actually did like it. And I want to make this very clear. If anyone's seen my TNA reviews and these NXT reviews, I've always been as fair as possible, but I'm not going to hide the criticism. We know that TNA is in a deal with WWE, TKO WWE. They're never going to get much out of this. Some publicity, yes, they will. Their talent will get spotlighted, yes, they will. But will they ever get anything large out of the situation? No, they're not. And if anybody says, oh, TNA is getting a lot out of this, they're not. Look at what's going on with TNA right now. Now, I'm not saying that TNA is garbage. I'm just saying you gotta look at what's going on. And people saying that TNA is doing great work, no, they're not. But it doesn't mean that they're not at least working. So I want to make this very clear when I do this review, that I am being fair in this review. I'm being fair what has been shown from TNA, at least what little they're talking about with TNA, and NXT. But I'm not going to lie here. It is obvious that when you look at TNA right now is in a very questionable, and I say again, questionable, transitions that we don't know how far they're going to go. But will the content they produce with NXT, is it going to be good? That's going to be the big question. Getting wrestlers is one thing, but making sure your storylines work with those wrestlers, that's a whole nother thing. Now, let's go with all the matches, then we'll talk about everything that happened on screen and in the back. Three-way for the North American Women's Championship #1 contenders match. Kiana Jordan, Jada Parker, and who was the last one? Carmen Petrovic, with a little bit of sprinkling of Shanti Adonis. The match was fine. It was a three-way dance, which is not bad. Was anybody a bit sloppy there? Yes, it was Miss Parker herself. I like Jada Parker, but she was a little sloppy here compared to Kiani as well as Carmen. She was a little bit more sloppier. I think she was trying to sell a little bit too much when they started getting some offense on her. And I think she went a little bit too far with it. But was it bad? No. But the reason that she lost, the reason that Kiani lost, was because Shanti Adonis decided to save his little squeeze, pull it out of the ring, and then once the Jada Parker, after she did her move and was gloating about it and doing her little bit of dance, Carmen gets in the ring and is able to get that win. And then that was it. I'm telling you this. When you see the situation, when you see that they wanted so badly to get Carmen to be recognized, but then not be recognized because this is more about Jordan Grace. And understand, she is on the roster now. She is on the NXT roster, which I agree with. Unlike what happened with the Good Brothers. Well, the Good Brothers and AJ Styles, along with the Motor City Machine Guns, did the Good Brothers end up on NXT at one point? I think they did, but I could be wrong. It's been so long, I forgot. But when it came to AJ, he wished he was on NXT. When it came to the Motor City Machine Guns, I bet you later in years or later in months, they're going to wish they had gone to NXT. Not because it's better, but at least they get a little bit of prep beforehand. And I'm honestly telling you, seeing that Jordan Grace is there makes me very happy. I am actually very happy Jordan is on NXT TV, unlike what happened with, and still, Jade Cargill, who never went to NXT where she should have gone and had more time, because when you look at Jade, she is not prepared. She's not built well. Not at all. But I will say when it comes to the final match of the night, and I'm skipping around here, when you see Fatal Influence, because Fatal Influence came out, started beating up on Carmen Petrovic because Carmen's getting #1 contendership against Stephanie McKeer, and you know that Fallon wants that damn title back, this led to this. Let's make this very clear. Out of all that, out of all 6 women, you know who's the most developed? You know who's the one who's the most understood and the most prominent? It's Jordynne Grace. Unlike when it came to Stephanie McKeer, it came to Zarya, it came to Julia in that fact, they were not developed. There was nothing there. They didn't try to build her up in this situation. For any one of those 3 women, they didn't take months to build up into it. They didn't take the time to it. Look what's going on with Stephanie McKeer. She now has the title. She shouldn't have it. Julia, she shouldn't have it. Now, at least you can say with Zarya, she is working with Soruka. So that does give her time to start building up a character. Whether she's going to stay in the tag division, I don't know. She shouldn't. But when you see, at least with Zarya, I can begin to believe in her because she's being developed. But Stephanie and Julia, nothing. But when you look at Jordynne, not just because if you're a TNA fan, you already know who she was. Look, she's already gone through the Royal Rumble. She already went up against... Let's make it very clear. She's already had at least 2 matches on the card already when it comes to NXT. Not even talking about when she went up against a Roxanne Perez. So she's been developed enough that people recognize her. They know her. I can believe in Jordynne Grace. If I didn't know her and I just started from Royal Rumble and then see NXT and then NXT again, I could buy a Jordynne Grace being in a very high level. Even if she has no title, she looks more legitimate than Stephanie or Julia. That's just the deal. I'm not against Julia. I'm not against Stephanie. I actually like Julia. And Stephanie McKeer is interesting. But when you look at all 3 of them, who do you think should be holding the title? Or who do you think shouldn't be holding the title? Stephanie and Julia should not be holding titles. Jordynne Grace should be holding titles. Or holding a title, not because she's from TNA, it's because she's been developed. Moving on. When you look at, what can I say about Chase Hughes? Chase. Going to end, I thought Chase Hughes was over. Now we get 2 old students trying to get Chase Hughes restarted again. And I'm like, this is one of the things I do not agree with. The show was good, but this I don't agree with. Andre Chase lost his match. They should not be trying to rebuild Chase Hughes. They should not have him being rebuilt as the professor of Chase Hughes. He should not be caring about Chase Hughes. He should be doing something else. They should be redeveloping his character. And now I'm not saying that they're not doing it. I'm not. But after going through Eddie Thorpe and getting his butt kicked, the question's going to be, what is the character Andre Chase is going to have? I don't know. But I know this. If they legitimately are trying to rebuild Chase U and use Andre Chase to do it, I'm not for it. I want to see Andre Chase do something else. Now, if you say, well, dude, maybe they're trying to rebuild it without him. Yes, I'll be fine with it if he gets character development. If they do not give him a character, if they do not give him something to grow into, this was a waste of time for me personally. I'm just saying. Now, what did we get here when we had Stacks versus Spears? Now, you already know what happened during the pay-per-view. Well, the PLE, when it came to Vengeance. We get the underboss not able, along with Crucifino, could not save Tony D. They couldn't get into the cage because Spears and his boys basically prevented them, and they whooped the ass of a Tony D. They just destroyed him. And now Stacks has to step up. But here's where it's getting interesting with Stacks. At this point, seeing that he has to take the place until the Dawn's better, which direction are they going to go? Are they going to show that when Stacks has shown that he can get things done and he goes this way, will they? What is this? This is him proving himself And yes, he did have a good match with Shawn Spears and did lose. Yes, he did. He did lose. But it does not mean they're not developing him to become the next Don. And here's the key of it. If he is being developed as the next Don, or because he feels like he deserves better than what he's doing, being criticized, that he's not being believed in, he's not being... Look at what happened with Crucifino and Rizzo. They did not respond to him. He is second in line. If Tony's there, of course, he has to be a subordinate. But Tony's not there, they have to follow his words because he's next in line. And they didn't feel comfortable with that at first. They're like, what? What do you mean? You're going to do this? And they're supposed to respond to him. That's part of the family, but they didn't do that. They still think of the Don. So either they're going one of two ways. One, even though he will not win all the time, he can be considered the next Don in development because he is showing, he'll show the family, not just Crucifino and Rizzo, the family itself, that yes, he's not been winning all the time. He is representing the family correctly. And even though Don was out because he got injured, he is, in their eyes, someone they could rely on even if he can't get the job done every time. And then there's the other way, where he gets sick and tired of taking orders. Rizzo's not listening to him. Crucifino's not listening to him. Don's not giving him the respect. And the family thinks of him as a joke. He goes off on his own and fights the family. That's what I think it might happen. Next. What do we got here? Zarya and Saruka versus... Let me give you like this. Was it a bad match between the Meta Girls? I'm getting used to them being called Meta Girls instead of Meta 4 since we don't see the other guys anymore. I'm giving you like this. The match was fine. But let's be honest. After the segments have been shown between Zarya and Saruka, do you actually believe that these two girls one of those two girls, let's make it very clear. Miss Jackson Nasty, I don't hate her. I don't. But there's been very little development for her. Almost no development. She's more of a sidekick. That's how she is right now. She has not really shown any incentive to be more than what she is. I'm sorry. It's not that I don't like Miss Jackson. It's that she just needs to go off on her own and get developed. And she has not done that. She hasn't. But when you look at Lash Legend, she has proven herself not only in the ring with her power work, but also how she talks, how she holds herself, the way she looks. She can go off on her own, and I do believe she can make something out of herself. So when you look at this, the one that seems to be, don't really matter is Miss Jackson. That's the reason why, if I remember correctly, she's the one who ate the pin. It was not Lash Legend. So I'm like at the point where the Meta Girls should be just the Meta Girl, not the Meta Girls. I'm just saying. I don't know how long they can keep Zarya and Saruka together, but like I said earlier, I am very happy to see Zarya having this interaction with someone so they can give her some type of development, unlike when it comes to pretty much Stephanie and Julia have no development, and now they've been just given 2 titles, and I don't give 2 flips about them. Not because I think they're not good wrestlers, or they couldn't talk, or I couldn't like them. There's just been no development. They've just been allowed to do straight matches, and then they just get the titles. No development. Why do I care? Moving on. Okay, I think that's enough of this. Let's go to which made the show very good, the segments that we had. Ricky Starks, or Ricky Saints, as he's now going to be called. Ricky Saints. Why Saints? What? Why couldn't he be called Ricky Starks? Look, NWA, he was called Ricky Starks. AEW, he was called Ricky Starks. Anywhere in the independents, he was called Ricky Starks. Why did they have to turn to Ricky Saints? It just didn't feel right. But knowing how TKO WWE, where they want to own everything. They always want to own everything of the wrestler if they can. If you got notoriety, Like AJ Styles, they can't take his name. They can't. He's already been developed that way. Like the Motor City Machine Guns, their names are already there. Their notoriety is so high, they just cannot just strip them of it. But Ricky, unfortunately, he lost his name. He just lost it. And I believe he's recognized and understood as Absolute Ricky Starks. And I just believe that he should have stayed that way. But you know how they are. You know how they are. That's it. Was this segment in the ring before Ethan or Wesley came in the ring? Yes. Ricky is just good on the mic. He's smooth, man. He's just smooth. And I loved how he talked, saying that he isn't just doing the dream. This is reality. Coming to NXT, it's reality. Going to a PLE, this is reality. I'm going to be doing my reality. But then Ethan comes out. And as you know, they know each other from the alternative, longer than that, but the alternative, and they didn't really hint at it, but we know. We know. So when it comes down to this situation where he is trying to say that you're doing exactly the same thing out of the page of Ethan Page, it was fine. But then when Ricky turned it on his side and made it very clear, my boy, you done great. Why are you messing with me like this? We both have our championships. Well, technically, he did have a win because he signed his contract, but also he had a win over Devon Evans, but he did make it very clear. The kid got that dog in him. And people like him always come back to whoop that ass. And within a few minutes, Ethan gets his glasses knocked off his face and he's running for his damn life by Devon Evans. But I don't think that segment was that important because really it wasn't. It was to set up the tag match next week. What was important was Wesley coming out because Ricky didn't try to embarrass my boy. Didn't try to embarrass Wesley, but the camera follows a Ricky Saints. I gotta try and remember to call him Ricky Saints, not Ricky Starks. If I forget to call him Ricky Starks, well, there you go. I just call him Ricky Starks when I mean Ricky Saints. If I do that for the next couple of weeks or month, please be understanding. But he just has the look. He is drawing the camera to himself, including the honey. But you get my point. But let's make this very clear. Was the segment between him and Wesley good? Yes, of course it was. It's fine. I have no problem with it. He has to have his first feud. Yes, it's going to be a tag match. And going with Devon Evans, not bad. But I do wonder how far they're going to go with Wesley in this situation. Because Wes is supposedly still supposed to bother the Rascals with I don't know. Here's the thing. If Wes and his boys, because I'm forgetting their names, I'm just going to call them Wes and the boys. If they're going to still do what they're going to do, the question's going to be, how much is Ricky going to have with a Wesley before he goes back over to TNA and he has to also work another feud, which will be with the Rascals and Ace Austin. That's going to be the big question. Like I said in many videos, it's not about how great to see the person there. It's about how to understand what they're going to be doing as the booking. The booking is going to be the big question between TKO, NXT, and TNA. If they don't get this booking right, it's going to screw up everything. Doesn't mean it won't get done. And I'm always going to keep saying, let's wait and see how far the booking is going to be. If the booking is going to be all right. This is the question. Now, we got... Let me give it to you like this. And this is where it gets... I'm going to skip the ending where Mrs. Stone gets injured. We already know it's the Rebels from the Performance Center. I'm not going to talk about them. There's only one thing we need to talk about, and that's Umafemi opening the show. After he won his match against Down Under, of course he would. He was supposed to. It was fine. And then he gets his ass whooped, but he makes a well, let me give it to you like this. Was that segment he said after he came in, was it good? With the guys who had the performance, and we already know. One of them looks like Madman Fulton, who used to be in TNA. Could be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but he looks like him. I'm not saying he is Madman Fulton. But he called them out. That didn't happen. We got what I talked about last year. That was eventually would have to happen. If they didn't let it happen, it shows that this crossover is bullshit. But I knew it had to happen. It must happen if they're going to do anything substantial. And that was Moose. I said this many years ago, and I still stand by it. AEW screwed up with Impact Wrestling so badly because there was no crossover. I said it every week while AEW was working with TNA. Well, Impact Wrestling at the time. That there's no fucking crossover. Where are the TNA Impact Wrestling wrestlers on AEW TV? Where are they? Where the hell are they? Didn't show up. And I knew this was just garbage. Where I heard so many people were so happy about it, I was not, because there was no crossover. When we got this started, we got only a partial crossover. And it was only with people who had the lowest hanging fruit on the main roster of NXT. I said this is not right. If you're going to start sending more established wrestlers over to NXT and all you're going to be sending back are low-hanging fruit wrestlers, it's not balanced and it's not fair. Now, we got Moose coming out, but he's not going after the North American Championship. He's going after the TNA, well, not TNA, the NXT champion. He gets in the damn ring, everybody call him Moose, and ain't no problem with that. I'm happy that this happened. But here's the thing again. You are now putting in a position one of the most established wrestlers they have in TNA. One of the most loved wrestlers, no matter if he's a heel or a face. People all love Moose. They either want to boo his ass or they want to cheer his ass whenever he does whatever he does. And this is where things are going to get nasty if they don't do this right. I don't care if you like this. I don't care if you love this. I'm happy to see Moose. I'm happy to see him in NXT. I was about to say TNA. I am happy to see him there. But I'm saying this. You're now putting your X Division champion up against your world champion of NXT. It's not Joe Henry. It's Moose. We had to send one of the most established wrestlers we have. Yes, he's in the lower tier championship title position. Doesn't make a difference. But what are you going to do with Moose? Are you going to treat Moose properly, or are you going to just use him to job him out? Yes, he'll get a good match out of probably Ubafemi. And eventually, and this is not now, they're going to probably build into it, which they should. Now, could this go at a pay-per-view? Of course it's going to go to possibly a pay-per-view, unless they're going to be stupid enough and do this on an NXT episode, which then will show they really don't care that much about Moose, and they don't really care that much about this partnership, where you're going to let the X Division champion, who is one of the most established and well-rounded wrestlers from the other promotion that you're working with, job on a random NXT show instead of maybe building into one of their PLEs. Give Moose a PLE win. Now, I'm hoping they're going to build Moose up, letting him have at least a couple of matches. Of course, he is going to get a match from Lexus King next week. And it's going to be for the title. It's going to be for the X Division Championship. No problem. Give him a whole bunch of people to go against through. Well, go against. How can I say? I'm getting nervous. I do not want to see Moose get jobbed out on an NXT episode. I don't. I want to see it in a PLE because Moose deserves that. But I don't know if they're going to do that. But this is just me. This was a good episode. It had things I didn't agree with, but I felt that this was a very good episode. But there's a lot of questions, and I'm sure you're going to answer them. Probably say everything's going great when it comes to TNA. No, it isn't. Wait and see. Do not be blind. And I'm saying this right now, before even when Impact comes on. I'm saying it now. Don't be blind. Don't. If you're so excited about Moose and don't think about how the booking's going to be for TNA and Moose, what are you doing? Just wanting Moose there is one thing. Do you actually want to see Moose get jobbed out like a bitch? I don't. I'm hoping it doesn't happen that way, and I don't believe it will. But I still have questions that deserve answers. Peace.